Pastor Monty's been preaching through the book of James, and if you haven't been able to be involved in that, you can find the James sermon series and all our other sermon series on our website or our Vimeo page or our YouTube page. You don't want to miss them. But thinking about the series through James, the sermon on chapter 3 has really stuck with me. That's the famous chapter where James talks about taming the tongue. And as a kid, I remember hearing this passage taught and would think about this big blob of a tongue being tamed by a lion tamer type character with a chair and a whip. You know, as an adult, I realized that it is so much harder to tame the tongue than it would be with a chair and a whip. But here's what James 3, beginning in verse 3, says about the tongue. When we put bits into the mouths of horses to make them obey us, we can turn the whole animal. Or take ships as an example. Although they are so large and are driven by strong winds, they are steered by a very small rudder wherever the pilot wants to go. And likewise, the tongue is a small part of the body, but it makes great boasts. Consider what a great forest is set on fire by a small spark. The tongue is also a fire, a world of evil among the parts of the body. It corrupts the whole body, sets the whole course of one's life on fire, and is itself set on fire by hell. All kinds of animals, birds, and reptiles and sea creatures are being tamed and have been tamed by mankind. But no human being can tame the tongue. It is a restless evil, full of deadly poison. You know, maybe you could see why I thought of a lion tamer as a kid with the examples that James uses here. But now I want to share with you an application point for what James says. I don't want to re-preach Monty's sermon at all, but I do want to give you a point of application. And you know, chances are you're watching this on Facebook. Facebook is a world of likes and dislikes and say whatever you want to say type invitation. But thinking about James's words here, that should terrify us. The tongue corrupts the whole body, sets the whole course of one's life on fire, and is itself set on fire by hell. Our speech has the power to destroy or to build up. And unfortunately, and especially online with a screen sitting between us and the rest of the world, we'll say about anything. Even the things we won't or shouldn't say to someone in person. You know, the things we say or type can't be unsaid, even if we later delete a comment. Sometimes it is hard for me to see a difference between someone I know claims to be a follower of Jesus Christ and the rest of the watching world based on what they say in the comments online. With most sins that we cherish, we immediately try to justify them. You know, some people might be thinking, the First Amendment gives me the freedom of speech, or I'm helping those ignorant of truth to see the truth. Well, remember, though, that nothing trumps God's word and direction and to make sure that what comes out of our mouths is edifying for the situations, according to Ephesians 4:29. That means our words make the situation better. Sometimes that means saying the hard things to point out sin and evil, but again, even when pointing out sin and evil, it is to be done in a way that is seasoned with grace, as Colossians 4:6 reminds us. We need to sit back and consider the words that are coming out of our mouths and through our fingertips. We cannot do that in our own power, though, and James says no one can tame the tongue. We need God to help us with that. We need his words to fill our hearts so that when we speak, people hear his word and not ours. Matthew 12:36 reminds us that we are accountable for every single word that we speak. You know, are we leading others to Jesus Christ or away from Jesus Christ with the words that come from us? We may mean well sometimes, but it is easy to cross the line before we even know what happened. Proverbs 10:19 warns us that many words lead to sin. And instead of spending so much time making sure our opinions or our experiences and our words are heard, it is far past due to spend more time making sure God's truth is heard. When we speak too much, we are white noise that no one hears. So let's follow James's instruction in the first chapter of the book of James when he says that we should be quick to listen and slow to speak and become angry. Because after all, those who consider themselves religious and yet do not keep a tight rein on their tongues deceive themselves, and their religion is worthless, according to James in chapter 1, verse 26. So will you join me in speaking less so that when we do speak and point people to Jesus Christ, they will actually listen to what we have to say? I'll be praying for you and ask that you pray for me in this. We'll see you soon.